Hi, everyone. This is Andrew Snyder from Lutron. Thanks for joining us. I'll get my screen shared here, and we'll get started in 1 second. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Firing up my webcam now so you can see me. Welcome to our conversation today about the Lutron Designer tool. This tool is our flagship design software that's used to design Lutron lighting control systems. And that includes all kinds of lighting control systems, whether it be from our simple wireless Vive solution up to our full-fledged quantum solution. So this is used for all types of systems. It's a powerful tool. We're going to scratch the surface today, showing you how to design some simple solutions. There's a lot of advanced material that's available on this. So again, we're going to go through kind of the get you started, and then I'll give you some resources to move forward if you're interested. If any of you attended yesterday's Vive webinar that I led, welcome back. It's nice to see you again. I am happy to say that I'm recovering well from the bike that ran into me 2 days ago when I was out for a run. If you have not attended my webinar yesterday and this is the first time you're hearing about it, I'm safe, don't worry. But when you're out there, getting your exercise, be safe, everybody. So my name is Andrew Snyder. I'm a systems sales engineer with Lutron Electronics, and I spent the first 11 years of my career at Lutron designing software for a lot of our systems. That includes the Vive devices as well. So the Lutron Designer tool is not something that I personally worked on, but I've worked in it for many years. And I'm happy to walk you through some of the features and power that it has today. I see that my webcam is not firing up, so I'll click that one more time and see if it's coming on. There I am. All right. So Lutron Designer, this is a free tool that's available to all of you. And as we get started, I highly recommend downloading this tool for your personal use if you haven't already. It used to be a little convoluted to download. There were a few steps. I'm happy to say we've made that much easier. And the steps to download it are as follows. Go to lutron.com/Vive Designer. That's it. When you hit enter, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen here that it begins downloading right away. I'm going to cancel it since I already have it. But that's it. You can download Vive Designer on your own. Check it out. It's immediate approval to design Vive projects. And if you want to take that to the next level and design some of our more complicated systems, there's approval required, but we can get there at a later point. For Vive projects, it's free and open to everybody by going to lutron.com/Vive Designer. So once you have that downloaded, you can either follow along if you happen to have two monitors at home using Lutron Designer on one screen and watching me on the other. Or for most of you, if you're working on a laptop with one screen, just follow along with me. And then there's YouTube video tutorials I'll refer you to later so that you can walk through this on your own. So after you have it downloaded, you're going to see a screen that starts off like this. There'll be a list of projects that you've worked on in the past on the right, which will be blank initially, and then create new project on the left. I'm going to start with create new project. And you're going to see it's going to ask me for some project level information. Where's the project located? What's the project name? What are the defaults? For example, if you're using a light almond faceplate throughout the entire job and you don't want to be burdened with changing your white faceplate to light almond every single time, you can set that in the project defaults. For me, for this example, the defaults are going to work fine for me. So I'm going to skip over the project setup screen, just using the defaults here. I'm based in Irvine, California, but I'll let it go ahead and think I'm in Pennsylvania, Coopersburg. That's fine. So once we get started, you'll see a lot of different tools and tips around here, and I'm going to walk through most of these at a high level. There are basically 5 steps to designing a lighting control project here in Designer. As I'm going through this, if you have any questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar chat. I can see an icon pop up if any questions get asked, and I'm happy to answer them real time as we go. So those 5 steps are: step 1, import your floor plan. Step 2, draw areas such as a restroom or a classroom. Step 3, add fixtures. Step 4, add devices. And then the very last step, step 5, is to connect everything. So import floor plan, being step 1, appears on the top left. This tool was laid out so that you start left and to go to the right, just like you were reading a book, left to right, top to bottom. So a question came up, won't not entering Irvine affect the code that will be used for designing? Good question, Tom. The location that you enter at the beginning will not affect any energy codes. It is definitely a best practice to populate that correctly, so I'm sorry for skipping over that. The reason why is the project documentation that's generated, which we'll see a little bit later, will indeed, I'm going to turn off my webcam here, getting an alert about a slow network. The energy codes that we'll get to, you will select. For example, if you're in California, you'll select Title 24. The location that you enter initially will not affect that. Good question. So for importing floor plans, I've actually provided you guys a PDF floor plan that I'm going to use, and I've included that as a handout here in GoToWebinar. So if you can see in the GoToWebinar details, there's a small section called Handouts, and there's a single PDF floor plan file that I provided for all of you there. Definitely download that when you have Designer open later. It's a particularly useful floor plan to go through and do some homework on your own. Of course, you're welcome to use a real floor plan as well, but we've created a simple one that also includes a fixture schedule on the floor plan for an easy exercise. So go ahead and download that handout and use that later. I'll walk through it now live. So as I click import, if you're working on any government projects, this red banner at the top should be paid attention to. For this demo project, I'm not using controlled unclassified information, so I'm going to proceed. And it now allows me to browse for any PDF file on my computer. Here's the floor plan that I've uploaded for you all. I'm going to double click that. And what you're going to notice when this uploads is that it's going to be a 1-page floor plan. If you happen to have a 10-floor building that you're working on, then that would work fine. You would import all those 10 pages as individual floors, and it would intelligently separate. On my computer, I use a separate tool to store the files, and this is getting tripped up. Let me refer back to another location. I have this same file stored. Okay. So I can see a little bit of my floor plan, and yes, that is the right one. I'm going to go ahead and import that. And step 1 is complete. I've imported my floor plan. After you've imported your floor plan, one of the key things you must do for Designer to work intelligently with this floor plan is to set those 2 measurements that are shown in the upper right, the scale and the ceiling height. So Designer has baked in all of the knowledge of occupancy sensor coverage, of wireless range, but to get those measurements correct, it needs to know the scale of your floor plan. So let's set that scale by right-clicking anywhere on the screen and choosing Show Scale. That'll have that green scale pop up there. And now let's measure something that we know the dimensions. So for example, I have a lot of 2x4 fixtures used in this floor plan. So I'm going to use the left mouse click button to measure a 4-foot fixture. And when I click that, I'll set that to 4 feet. When I click done, Designer registers that, and now it knows the scale of my floor plan. I can also see in show scale that the ceiling height is set to 9 feet. This affects my occupancy coverage. I'm going to leave that at 9 feet because that works for me. Okay, so step 1, import floor plan, is now complete. Let's move on to step 2, add fixtures. What we've done here is we've added 5 fixtures to the top of this example floor plan for you all to use as an example. The text is a little difficult to read, but you can see on the top left here, I have a pink F1. I then have an F2, F3, F4, and so on. So when I click the Add Fixtures button, I saw a question come in about adding areas. Yes, that is important. The order in which it's executed is actually not critical, but we'll do that right after I add this first fixture. Thanks for asking that, Jason. So just to recap, the areas can be added at any time, and we'll do that shortly. Okay, so here in the Add Fixtures screen, I have a whole bunch of fields down here. I'm going to type in F1. And what I'll see after that is that a few properties auto-populate. These may or may not be correct. In this case, there's a few things that aren't correct. For example, the load type, according to my fixture schedule in the background, says that this is a switched fixture, but it auto-populated as LED ecosystem. So I'm going to switch that to LED switched, and that's going to make sure that I pair the right controls with this fixture. Also, it auto-populated with 120 volts as the voltage. That's incorrect according to my fixture schedule, so I'll switch that to 277 volts. Similarly, I'll update the lamp wattage to 30 watts. And there we go. I've finished populating my first fixture. Now I can add F2, F3, and so on, and I'll do that eventually, but I'm going to stop here with just F1, and we're going to get to the next step so you can see what I'll do with this. So let's draw some areas. I can see that these 2 restrooms in the middle use the F1 fixtures. So I'm going to use the area draw tool in the upper right. The default shape of an area is a rectangle, which works fine for the restroom, but you can draw different shapes if you'd like to, depending on the size of the room. So with the area draw tool, I'm going to left click on one corner of the area, drag to the other side and click again, and it asks me to name the area that I've just created. I'll name that restroom 1. And now we have a workable space to work in. I have my F1 fixture that I've populated here, and I can see on the floor plan that there's 2 of them. I'll click on this fixture, and you can see that now I have the ability to stamp this down. And this is the detail that's worth paying attention to. So when I stamp one of these fixtures, notice that as I drag away, I have this black line following me. If I stamp again, I'll stamp another fixture in the same zone. So if I stamp a second time, you'll notice that the 1 icon in the upper left of the fixture remains 1, indicating that fixture is in the same zone as the other one. But if at any point I hit the escape key, the black line goes away and it allows me to set up possibly a new zone of lighting. This particular restroom just has 1 zone of lighting, so I'm not going to stamp a second zone. So I'll stop there. I'll hit escape again, and that will bring me back to the selection tool. Pro tip here for anybody who plans on using Designer for more than a few minutes, I highly recommend using a mouse, an external mouse, instead of your laptop touchpad. And the reason why is primarily about dragging the floor plan around. So let's first suppose I have a laptop touchpad. If I want to drag the floor plan around, I must select this hand in the upper center of the screen, drag it over, and then go back to click the tool that I was previously working in. This might seem minor, it's just a few seconds, but when you do this enough, these seconds add up. So with a mouse, if you press the scroll wheel in, you can drag your floor plan around without having to bother with this hand tool. So again, I highly recommend a mouse. It's very useful for navigating your floor plan. And the key thing to do is to press your scroll wheel in to move your map around. Okay, so step 1, import my floor plan. Step 2, draw my areas. Step 3, add my fixtures. Step 4, add devices. At this moment, there's a little bit of clutter on the right-hand side, and I'm going to just slightly rearrange this to focus on what I care about. On this particular project, there happens not to be shades. So I'm going to collapse my shades toolbar. I'm going to collapse a few of these other toolbars, which might be interesting, but at the moment we haven't covered them, so I'm simply going to collapse them. So all that I see is fixtures and devices. So now let's add devices. I'll give my webcam a shot again and see if my internet connection is strong enough. For those of you familiar with the Vive system, or perhaps if you attended the webinar yesterday, you'll see a few options to control switched lights in the Vive system. One of them looks like this that I'm holding up on the webcam. This is a POW pack. The other option is an in-wall device that has the Maestro form factor. Both of these are viable options to control switched lighting here in the restroom. And which one I want, it depends on a few things, but for the purposes of this example, I'm simply going to choose the POW pack arbitrarily. You may want to choose the in-wall switch if perhaps there's already wires in the wall, if this is a retrofit, but I'll leave that to you for your own project decisions. So I want to use the POW pack. Let's do this step 4, add devices. So when you add devices, if you have Vive only access, you're going to see only the Vive products. I have access to a few other systems here in Designer, so you'll see other products on the screen that you won't see with yours. Or you can click these show only options to boil it down if you're seeing too many options. So only Vive. We've recently made an update where if you've just downloaded the software freshly, we'll auto-populate your toolbox with all the Vive devices. So you might even be able to skip the step I'm showing right now if you just downloaded Vive fresh. But I'll show you how to use the toolbox in case you get to that next level. Here I am in the toolbox, and there's a lot of devices, so much so that I really don't feel like scrolling through them all. So I'm going to use this excellent search tool in the upper left, and I can search with anything. I'm going to search POW pack. Or if I've gotten to the point of memorizing model numbers, I can also search a model number like RMJS. Any of those would work. This is a pretty flexible search tool. Highly recommend using it. So I can see I've got some red POW packs. Haven't covered those. Don't plan on using them in this example, so I'm going to skip over them. And I've got some green POW packs down here. I see I have this relay POW pack. that can do up to 5 amps of switched control. But I also have a 16 amp relay. This is only 2 fixtures. I think I can get away with the cheaper, less powerful 5 amp relay module. So I'm going to click on PowerPack Relay, add that device to my toolbox, and then I'm going to consider what else I need here. And this depends on what energy code you're using. So I'm in a restroom. I know from doing this before that I'm going to need a wall control and an occupancy sensor. But for those of you doing this, perhaps for the first time or who want some resources to walk away with, I highly recommend going to lutron.com/energy codes. This is an excellent resource that we've put together, allowing you to pull up your state, and we'll tell you what's needed for an energy code compliant design. For this Title 24 2019 example, my restroom needs switching lights only. I don't need dimming. It needs an occupancy sensor that turns the lights fully on. If there's windows, it needs a daylight responsive control. And then it needs demand response. Okay, so now I know what an energy code compliant solution looks like. I know I need a wall control. In Vive, the wall control solution is a Pico remote. So I'm going to add a 2-button Pico remote with a wall plate. I don't want to have a loose Pico in the restroom. That's just going to get lost. So I'll choose the wall plate option here, and I'll add that to my toolbox. If I look for an occupancy sensor now, I have a few options. I've got a wall mount, corner mount, ceiling mount. I'm going to go for the ceiling mount because the restroom has stalls, and the wall mount would be a poor choice when you have those partition dividers in any kind of a space. So the ceiling mount sensor, I double clicked it and it popped over into my toolbox, and I think I'm ready to lay out a code compliant design here in my restroom. So with the occupancy sensor selected, I can see my occupancy range with this purple bubble. This purple bubble allows me to see if I have full coverage given the power of the occupancy sensor and the ceiling height that I've entered earlier. I'll place this right here, covering the entire room. And that looks good to me. I'll now click on the Pico and place that at an intelligent place right at the entry. And lastly, I have my PowerPack, and I have this new bubble following me around now. This is the wireless range of the PowerPack, and I can see that in this case, the wireless range is more than adequate to handle this entire restroom. So I'm going to stamp one of these for my one zone of lighting that has these 2 fixtures. And I believe that is a complete solution for my restroom. So that is step 4, placing devices. The very last step to complete this would be connecting these devices. And you can see in the upper right, the exclamation point, the yellow exclamation point is grabbing my attention. This connection tool is the last step you need to complete. So I'll click connect. And I've got a few connections to make. Let's start with the PowerPack and the load. So I have these 2 fixtures that aren't controlled by anything. So I'll click one of these fixtures and connect it to my PowerPack. Notice the other fixture's exclamation point went away. That's because they're zoned together, so they're wired together. Now I wire up my occupancy sensor, and I say wire with quotation marks around it. This is a wireless connection, so you'll see a dotted line instead of a hard, solid line. And last but not least, I'll associate my Pico remote with a wireless connection as well. I've now completed my restroom. So now that step 5 is completed, This is where the power of Designer really shines. At this point, I'm going to show you the reporting functionality of Designer, and then welcome you to download Designer and tackle the rest of these rooms whenever you have time later today or later in the week. So the reporting functionality of Designer is entirely captured up in this Reports tab in the upper left. There's a whole bunch of reports that can automatically be generated by Designer, and how I'm going to start is by going to the report package to generate a full package for my customer containing every report that is possible with Designer. Now, as you get to know each of these reports, you might learn that some of them are more useful than others, or you prefer some more than others. So you're free to check and uncheck the boxes for each of these reports as you find them useful. I'm going to generate this entire report initially, and I encourage you to do the same. That way you can browse and see what you like and see what you don't like. I'll tell you some of my favorites, but again, I encourage you to check them all out. A few of my favorites are the bill of materials. That's an obvious one. That's critical. We can generate a bill of materials straight from the Designer tool. A fixture schedule. A one-line diagram showing how everything is connected, including wired and wireless devices. And then also the control intent. Since I had them all chosen here, I now have this PDF that I can save to my computer and send to my customer, or I can browse it right here on the screen. So let's take a look. My bill of materials for this solution includes a Pico wall remote. It includes a single occupancy sensor, a relay module, a wall plate, and a Pico wall box adapter kit. How are these connected? Well, let's go find our one-line diagram and see what that looks like. This would be useful for the contractor on site to go there and see what needs to be connected to what and what needs to be associated to what. So here's my one-line diagram. This is very simple since it's just a single restroom. I'm going to scroll in so you can read it. And you can see my single POW pack is powered by 277 volt power. It's controlling 68 watts of non-dim LED. That's two fixtures named F1. And it's wirelessly associated to these two devices on the right. Now, this is high quality professional reports coming out of this tool that I just sketched together in a few minutes. So that's really the power of Designer and why we developed it. A few takeaways I'll leave you with as we're coming near the end here. I want to show you that if you have any coworkers who weren't able to attend today, or if you're trying to remember this information a month from now, please check out the tutorials in the upper right, and you'll find a lot of the same information we covered today here in this quick start video. If and when we add new features, we're going to add them here as well with video tutorials. So check this out. We put a lot of effort into creating these tutorials, and that gives you some takeaways to use this moving forward. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions on Lutron Designer, please reach out to me, Andrew Snyder. My email address is asnyder@lutron.com, or anybody at Western Lighting that you chat with. We're all happy to help you. Thanks again for attending. I look forward to working with you. Bye, everybody.